Okay, so as you probably are aware, Republicans are really beating down on book bans. So, well, it's hit Wisconsin, and I was looking at the list of bans of books that people want to ban. And I recognized one. It's called It's Perfectly Normal. It's a book about puberty. And that's sexually obscene? What? Children want to know about puberty. That's not obscene. What's obscene is that they have to go to a damn book to learn about it because they can't get that info from their parents, but that's a different discussion. But yeah, most of these books are either puberty books, LGBT books, or books on race and ethnicity. None of these, except for the puberty books, most of these have nothing to do with straight people, which is the puberty and the race and ethnicity books. So this is a tell. They don't want you to learn about race. They don't want you to learn about different gender and sexual identities. And they don't want you to learn about your changing body. So, why? Why do they not want you to learn these things? I mean, I understand why they don't want you to learn about race or sexual identity or gender identity because, well, they're bigots, so we can't have, racial and sexual minorities being comfortable and learning about themselves. No, we can't have that. Or learning about other cultures. Nah, can't have that. That makes sense. But even puberty? I'm sorry. Just because you read in a book that this is what happens when you go through puberty, and in the case of women, one of the things they learn about is that you get your period. What exactly is wrong with that? How is that sexually explicit? I mean, do these people hate knowledge of any kind? I swear these are a bunch of old white men who never learned about anything other than themselves in their entire lives, because sex ed sucks. So they never learned about women. And because they probably think periods are ew gross, which, yeah, they kind of are, that nobody should learn about it because it shouldn't be talked about. Even though women and girls go through that, and they should kind of know what to expect. I know I've mentioned this story before on this channel, but my best friend in grade school, when we were going from grade school to junior high, I got my period first. And when she got her period and she talked to her parents, they're like, I thought Susan's had her period. Why don't you talk to her? Which, number one, kind of a douchey thing to do, but still. Yeah, she spoke to me. And it's great if you have someone to talk to. But being that I just got my period for the first time as well, except for the practicalities of this is, yeah, what happened to you happened to me. No, it's not universal. So why not find out what all the different ways you can first get your period? And I don't know how extensive these books get, but learning about periods, learning that your hormones are going to start rearing their ugly heads, learning about how your body is changing, in men that they're growing hair, that they're able to become more muscular. Whatever it is, I fail to see what's wrong with that. And to focus on the LGBT plus community, again, what's wrong with that? What's sexually explicit? And here they're claiming that books are teaching you how to have oral sex. First, no. No, that's not what they're teaching you. If it, depending on what age we're talking about, sex is going to be a part of their lives. I mean, I used to read, and I have no idea why I did, I used to read stories of a series of books that, among other things, it was pretty much a romance novel, which I didn't realize when I started reading it. And whenever they got to romantic or sexual situations, I just rolled my eyes because, ew. But it didn't make me want to go out and have sex. It did not make me straight. It didn't make me anything. People are capable of reading stuff and not mimicking what these. That's like saying if you read a book on a serial killer, that'll inspire you to become a serial killer. No. That is not how reading works. That's not how knowledge works. That just says if you are in this situation, this might happen. I fail to see how this is a problem. They're not saying, oh, go out and have sex. It's saying if you are having sex, or if you're thinking about having sex, these are the things you should consider. Sex ed. So, we have that. And most of these books, like I said, are a lot of them are targeting LGBT plus people. So, what the hell? That's a real big tell that the books that you find obscene are sexual minorities. So, the same romance novels that I read when I was a teenager, those would be perfectly fine because not a queer person in sight. But if I added a queer person into the story, suddenly that's obscene. Not how that's not how obscenity works. That isn't how any of this works. And then, of course, there's this idea that who are you to tell people who know what age appropriate materials to give out? Who are you to tell them that this is obscene, so I don't want anybody to be able to read it because I don't like it? That's, again, not how any of this works. So, and then we get to the racial and ethnic minorities books, which, what's obscene about those? I mean, again, maybe some of these are romance novels that um that instead of starring white people, star ethnic minorities, which is perfectly fine. Again, I'm not seeing books that are romance novels that have only straight people. I don't see them in this list. Why? Because that's not the point. They do not want you to feel comfortable if you are a minority of any sort. And like I said, it's perfectly normal, which is one of the books. Now, I think the latest edition does talk about the LGBT community as well. But still, It's a book about puberty. It's not even focusing on minorities of any sort. It is just talking about what girls' bodies go through when they're going through puberty and how it changes your relationships and friendships and whatever else. Your how this is going to affect your relationship with your parents, probably with other family members, because some parents just can't accept that their little girl is going through puberty. I mean, I just do not see why this is why these books are being targeted. It's not like they're taking this book, which they're different versions of It's Perfectly Normal, one for younger kids and one for slightly older kids. So it's not like this is a one size fits all situation. These are books that are age appropriate for someone. It's just that these adults who can't accept that the things that these children are learning scare them, because they don't want their kids to know about how their body changes, because I guess that would prevent puberty if they didn't learn about it. Not how puberty goes. Or if you don't learn about other race or ethnic minorities, that would mean that they would just learn to hate those people, and which is what we want, because anyone besides white are bad. I mean, I don't understand what is the problem. I realize these people have problems with CRT, critical race theory, which is actually a law school class, but whatever, because apparently teaching about slavery and racism somehow means that white people should feel guilty for being white. Do I feel guilty? No. Do I think I should use my powers for good? Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only people who are in some odd way feeling guilty about the color of their skin are the white nationalists, because why would they try to curb stomp these books and learning about these concepts if they didn't feel a little bit guilty themselves because reasons? There's no reason for white people to feel guilty. They're, as long as they're not being racist, or if they've done racist things in the past or thought racist thoughts, they can get better at not doing that. I fail to see why that's a problem. I know I've said in previous videos about how I've dealt with prejudice. I would see young black men alone at night, while I was alone at night in a group, and I would feel uncomfortable, which I was kicking myself mentally for doing that. But I acknowledged it and I got over it. I didn't have a pity party saying, oh, that makes me a horrible racist. No. What would make me a horrible racist is if I held on to that and, I don't know, went on a rampage against young black men because I'm uncomfortable around them. That would make me racist. Acknowledging discomfort is not racism. So, this keeps happening, and it's just so fascist. And before anyone yells at me for accusing Republicans of being fascist, go back and look at history. That's exactly what fascists did. This is what the Nazis did. They went and they got rid of anything that didn't toe the party line. If you're not thinking this way, we don't want that material in the we don't want you to have access to that material, because that is not what you are supposed to think. We are going to tell you what you are supposed to think. And that's what these book bans are doing. They're thinking one way, and they know that their way of thinking is bad. They know that it's not acceptable, because why else would you stop others from reading about things like puberty if you didn't somehow feel uncomfortable about that material being out there? Why would you want to ban the fact that racism exists, that slavery exists, and ban books about it, or just books with racial or ethnic minority, or sex and gender minority main characters, if it didn't make you uncomfortable? And so, ironically, the same people who are claiming that Democrats and the bleeding heart liberals want a safe space, what the hell do these book bans do? They're basically screaming, I want this world to be my safe space, because I can't handle that there are people out there who are not like me. It's so stupid. And it's just so annoying that there are so many schools out there, so many school districts that have school boards that are perfectly fine with this, and then there are legislatures who decide that they have to stick their nose in everybody's business, which, by the way, these are the same people who claim parental rights, that parental rights should reign supreme. And yeah, parental rights only reign supreme when those parents agree with them. If these parents are okay with these kids reading these books, or being trans or being gay, unless they think those things, well, no, that's not real parental rights. Parental rights is when parents agree with us that those things are horrible and that we should stomp them out. I mean, they cannot go a minute without being hypocrites. Yes, there are certain things that I find abhorrent. Do I think that those books should be removed? No, I don't, because those ideas should be there, for no other reason for people to point and laugh at. But it's not for me to tell you what to do or think. Will I be disappointed if you do think horrible things? Of course. But can I stop you from thinking those? No. I just can stop you from acting on it. Like, taking your hatred for trans kids and, oh, I don't know, banning gender affirming care, or just, you know, outing them to their parents, because, outing people is always a good idea. Which, no, it's never been a good idea. So, yeah, once you take those thoughts and put them into action, then I have a problem with it. Do I think that you should get up on your soapbox and imply that others should have a problem with this and take action against this? Yeah, I would have a problem with that, because this is no longer just you thinking horrible thoughts. This is you acting on those horrible thoughts and trying to get others to do your bidding. So, yeah, it is a fine line, but it is there. So it is just so disheartening that Republican legislatures, and yes, especially in Wisconsin, we have a supermajority, so yay. Luckily, we have a sane governor. Anyway, but it's just so disheartening that these same people who are claiming freedom of speech are the ones who are actually actively working against it. Because it's one thing for a parent to say, to their kid, I don't want you reading about this. I don't feel comfortable with you reading this. That's one thing. But to have agents of the government, which is what school staff are, the school board is, and especially the legislature, once they start saying what what anybody can read, then yeah, that is a free speech violation, because until you can show that these books actually are obscene, which, fun fact, librarians do have a test that where they could look to see if this book is genuinely obscene or it's just something you don't like. So it's not like librarians just let anybody access whatever material they want. Librarians understand that age appropriate books exist, age appropriate materials exist. They know that, because that's why we have children's librarians, we have young adult librarians, we have adult librarians. We run the gambit, because we know that there is a progress. And to tell people who've been doing this and studying this and understand what is age appropriate for children, and then to have somebody who has no children and who's decided that they're going to speak for all parents and decide that no child should be able to read a certain book because they don't feel comfortable. So the other parents don't get a choice. The other parents can't say, oh, I don't mind if my kid reads such and such a book. But this one parent can say, no child should be able to read this book. And even worse, the legislature, which that is a violation of free speech, because these are government agents. It's not the government's place to regulate speech unless it's something that's threatening. And none of these books are threatening, except for possibly making children less bigoted. That's a possibility, to read about how it's perfectly normal for LGBT people to exist, or for racial minorities to exist, or ethnic minorities. So yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that these books would accomplish, is potentially making people less bigoted. Other than that, the only thing they're learning is about themselves, about other cultures, about other types of people, which I don't see a problem with. So, yeah, I just, I really, really wish that something would happen to make the Republican Party just go away. I mean, I didn't much care for the Republican Party from yesteryear, but at least they pretended to be sane. This Republican Party isn't even doing that. They're just showing how absolutely bonkers they are. So anyway, now I have mentioned before in other videos that, yeah, there are some on the left who are probably just as crazy about banning books. But I don't agree with those people either, and at the moment they're not the ones we have to worry about, because they aren't the ones who are calling for book bans. Do I But, when they try to ban certain books or certain movies because it's blah, 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 like it doesn't put racism in the right light, or it does, or it's through the eyes of a white person, or whatever. Whenever those come up too, yeah, I have a problem with those, with trying to ban those materials as well. But right now, lately, we've been mostly hearing about the right wing banning things. So, yeah, as I keep hearing about these things, I'm going to keep railing against it, because if you start banning ideas simply because you don't feel comfortable about these ideas, then we're in trouble. Even if they're horrible ideas, then explain why they're horrible. These people cannot explain why these books are obscene. They just have to make shit up, like this book is teaching you how to have oral sex. They have to do that because if you actually look into these books, read these books, you'll find out there's nothing wrong with these books. It's just about whether you're comfortable reading these books or discussing these books. So, if you don't have a good reason to ban these books, and according to this article, it's supposed to be oh yeah, well we have safeguards in place, so only books that are actually sexually explicit would be. Bitch, you have this book list that has nothing to do with anything being sexually explicit. So you just proved that you're a hypocrite. Because why pass a law that we already prevent people from reading books they shouldn't be reading. If it's called parents paying attention to their kids, and if they're reading something you don't want them to, you take the book back to the library and they put a stop on the kid from reading certain materials or something. You do not prevent any kid from reading a book because you don't want your kid to read it, because you don't feel comfortable. That is not how this works. Like I said, librarians have a system to decide whether a book is obscene. And so far, none of the books that have been attempted to be banned or have been banned actually passes that test, because none of those books are actually obscene. They're just books you don't feel comfortable reading or having your children read. And that's it. So, you don't like a book, you don't want your kids to read a book, fine. That is up to you as a parent to decide what your children read. They'll probably figure out another way to sneak around you, but that's different. However, to tell other children and to tell parents of other children that you know the best because you feel a certain way about how your child should be raised, that you're going to tell all parents how they should raise their children. That's not how any of this works. These parents have as much right to decide how their children are raised and what they're able to read as you're doing to your child. So, unless you're abusing them, I fail to see why a parent should tell other parents how to raise their kids. That is just not how any of this works, and it is so irritating that these book bans will just not go away, because it's just screaming, we don't feel confident in what we're saying, so we've got to make sure you don't You don't learn about these ideas because if you learn about them, what if we're going to be hated for our ideas? And instead of being hated, we're just not going to let people learn about them. So they just will have to listen to us. Nothing says I'm confident in my beliefs, then I'm not going to let you learn about other beliefs, just mine, because you might actually learn something. Anyway, I think I've beaten this dead horse to death. So, it's not so much of a dead horse, but I've beaten it to death regardless. So, with that, I will see you in the next video.